Hello everyone, let's look at the Chelsea, Jessica, and Jimmy love triangle relationship. In this video, we're going to analyze what happened in the pods, because apparently it's about to get really messy. Here's a quick disclaimer, you can pause and read. When Chelsea and Jimmy first meet, they connect on the fact that they both like to travel. It's silly to see that flirting in the pod means implying that they're going to get married. Jessica is an executive somewhere and leads with the fact that she's ready to get married. Her and Jimmy also seem to have a fun-seeming connection, but it is more intense. Jessica tells the girls that she's getting electric vibes, and as their connection grows, Jessica reveals she hasn't told anyone that she has a daughter. Now, her reason is that she wanted everyone to get to know her before judging that she has a daughter, although saying that her daughter means everything to her. And a couple of dates in, Jimmy also hypes up their connection. After seeing that their relationship is rooted in seeking emotional safety with each other, Jessica finally tells Jimmy about her daughter. She prefaces it with her being afraid of how he'd react. Now Jimmy asks her if she's got a secret. What I want to point out is that although Jessica is allowed to share or not share whatever she wants, there is a level of deception involved when you're lying by omission. When you're single, but you also have to be upfront about your current family or living situation, which she was not. Jimmy asked why they hadn't discussed it before. Now I want to note that Jessica kind of spins her deception into being something okay because they hadn't talked about wanting children yet. She rationalized it without understanding that others may not perceive it that way. The conversation goes well verbally, but Jimmy's discomfort is pretty obvious. This is the beginning of when we start seeing that Jimmy likes to tell people what they want to hear. He ends the conversation with "I like you a lot." Chelsea on her next date with Jimmy tells him that she got married when she was younger. Again, he seems to have taken this news well, validating that it's not the heaviest news he's received in that day. Chelsea breaks down emotionally, but Jimmy doesn't seem to have the emotional capacity to show up for someone when they're upset, and this is not the first time we'll see this. Despite the emotional breakdown, I think this was probably the session where Jimmy might have started to think that he would go for Chelsea over Jessica. He might have felt like there's less pressure to go with Chelsea because she doesn't have as much responsibility as Jessica would. On their next date, they both apologize and seem more comfortable when there aren't any heavy emotions involved. They agree that their conversations are filled with laughter, and this is what makes their relationship easy. This is also the date where the most contentious conversation takes place. Chelsea asks if Jimmy's ever been compared to a celebrity. Now, the way that she avoided saying Megan Fox is questionable. It sounded like she might have been embarrassed, but my observation is that it was truly innocent. And I do kind of believe that someone at some point told her facial features, especially from certain angles, look like Megan Fox. This is silly, but it probably sealed the deal for Jimmy. Jessica divulges on a date what it's like to be a mother. And I'd like to note that Jimmy's body language gets increasingly less comfortable. However, he continues to lead her on by saying all the right things. Like asking her daughter's hobbies. She asks if she's too challenging, and he says he likes that. Jessica wonders what the electric feeling she gets with Jimmy would be besides love. Now, combined with her fear of not being picked, I would say that it's not love and more like desire. I think the situation with Jimmy saying all the right things as he seems to be able to be anything a person wants, along with her own insecurities of not finding someone who's perfect, have led her to have intense feelings. The added uncertainty of not being picked intensifies that feeling of desire, anxiety, longing, rather than it being love. Love is a comfortable feeling. It is deep, but it is not intense. It's free and trustful, not full of insecurities, and rather reassurance. Jimmy keeps validating her on their dates. Meanwhile, on a date with Jessica, she starts talking about a daily life with her daughter. Jimmy seems disinterested and starts cracking his knuckle, which she's surprised by, but also shows he's not genuinely interested. She also starts talking about her expectations from him for social media, and as you can see, he's very confused. His face shows that he's struggling with this information. However, again, the conversation ends with him saying all the right things and reassuring her. Meanwhile, on a sushi date with Chelsea, she reveals that the divorce conversation and his reaction to it made her realize she didn't want to stop talking to him. Which is interesting because had she seen his body language or emotions, maybe she would have thought differently. When he says he envisions a life with her, Chelsea starts breaking down, crying. But Jimmy's body language shows that he's more pensive, still showing that he's uncomfortable with people expressing their feelings, or maybe even thinking of how to break it off with Jessica. My question is, why are these women so comfortable in a role where they have to express their love for someone and wait to see if they feel that back for them? For example, Trevor told Chelsea that he loved her and seemed to be a great match in terms of her sensitivity and compassionate side, but she still chose to long for Jimmy. Jimmy tells Jessica on their next date that as long as someone tells him that they love him, that he's in it for the long haul, which is kind of deceptive. It made me wonder if telling people what they want to hear is ingrained in him, or stringing Jessica along was a part of him getting back at her in some way for not revealing that she had a daughter sooner. Jessica presents him with a letter that she supposedly wrote for her future husband. Some people may see this as a manipulation tactic to drive the point home. She doesn't seem like she's someone who doesn't get what she wants often, but we have to remember that Jimmy is actively leading her on. And although he says he appreciates this, his body language says otherwise. He seems confused and uncomfortable. She seems pretty upset by her facial expressions that he didn't do what she expected him to do, which was probably to profess his love for her. But Jimmy says he's unsure. She says things like she's okay with the fact that he hasn't made up his mind yet, but notice her tone was very resentful. I could understand why she's confused because Jimmy has been leading her on. So she gives him an ultimatum, although she says she's okay with him not deciding. She says she might not want him by the time he decides. Again, this is a pressuring and manipulative statement. On the next date with Chelsea, Chelsea asks him how he's doing, and that seems to be enough for him to feel relieved and say he loves her. This could be for a couple of reasons. One, because he's feeling pressured by Jessica, and Chelsea seems to be a little more unsure, just like him. Two, because Chelsea is also wanted by another man, and he feels that maybe she has more value based on that. Three, because it seems like most of their dates, Chelsea is more focused on how he's doing and validating him, which is more true to his character because he appears to be very self-involved, which is seen in later episodes too. She says she's wanted to be the one who was proposed to before she says I love you, which is again interesting because it highlights her insecurity of feeling never wanted. And the minute she is, that would be the person. Then Jimmy does propose first, and she says yes, leaving Trevor to justifiably wonder if she only said yes because Jimmy asked her first, which is totally unfortunate and a whole other side story. Jessica decides to confront Jimmy. Now she's totally in her right to do so, but I'm wondering if this was more of a power play. You can see that she's hurt because of all the ways Jimmy had led her on. Jimmy responds very coldly, again showing that he has a lack of emotional intelligence and capacity to understand how someone else is feeling and respond appropriately by apologizing. Instead, calls her out for being unfair. Taking no accountability for your part in how another person would feel with what you've said is gaslighting. She is devastated, but I'd like to remind everyone that she had been manipulative herself. With the letters, the ultimatums, the threat, she lastly leaves it at, you're going to choke when you see what you've missed out on. Again, not really mindful of her simultaneously putting down Chelsea. This concludes my analysis of what happened in the pods. As you all know, Jimmy's problematic behavior continued, insecurities run high, and I'd love to analyze everything in small chunks. Let me know what you guys noticed too. In the next video, I will talk about the reveal as well as the honeymoon time. Stay tuned for some intensely disturbing behavior.